So hello to everyone. Welcome to the crowdfunding workshop that we have today. Welcome to the Migrant Talent Garden project. My name is Ivo. I have multiple hats, like I guess most of my colleagues here at the ZIP organization that is part of the Migrant Talent Garden program. On the one hand, I have a software company here in Zagreb called Perpetuum Mobile. We have established that many years ago, and it's just making software projects like a lot of people in the area. Another thing is that I was one of the co-founders of ZIP, which was the Zagreb Entrepreneurship Incubator also many years ago, and I would take the opportunity to remind one of my co-founders, which is Sasha Cvetojevic, that Sasha, next month we have 10 years of ZIP, so we have to organize some barbecue or some beers or something. I've been working with different startup programs and entrepreneurial programs within ZIP and outside of the context for many years with different organizations, trying basically to support up-and-coming entrepreneurs to help them on their way and to help them to not to make any mistakes, but maybe to have some mistakes that we all have made and to understand what we have done in the past, and so that they can learn from our mistakes instead of their mistakes. That's kind of a basic idea. I also from time to time teach at the Algebra University College. We are all here in Zagreb very happy to expect that very soon it will not be University College, it will be Algebra University, but that's still in a kind of transitional phase. So the presentation I have today is based somewhat on the discussions we had with our teams in the ZIP starter program and somewhat on my teaching in the Algebra program. The idea of this workshop is to give you an idea of what it's like to do a crowdfunding project for your various entrepreneurial ambitions. What are the main things that you have to keep in mind? What are some of the concepts? And essentially to give you some kind of a very rough idea where you need to go. Of course, it's just one session, so you cannot expect to get like everything you need to know, but hopefully we'll give you some guidelines and we'll give you some points to keep in mind. And then if you really want to finance the projects that you are doing using the crowdfunding methodology, hopefully this knowledge and this discussion that we have today will be at least of a little help. And that's I guess that's the most we can aim for in the context of this single presentation and in the context of the Migrant Talent Garden project. In any case, it's a privilege to see you all, some with pictures, some without pictures. Sasha is chewing on some kikiriki or some slane koštice or some potato chips or something, and that's okay, which means he's bringing even more energy to his already very energetic person, because when Sasha comes on the schedule, you must know that this is one guy that has like 17,000 companies going at the same time, and he's always very busy. And all of us who know him, whenever we get together and he's not there, we all ask one another, how is he doing that? It's impossible. He's a completely crazy guy, but somehow it seems he's still doing it. So that will come a bit later. Obviously, Migrant Talent Garden is a project that I'm sure you're all fairly familiar with. So the main goal of the project is to help people who are in other countries to kind of get some footing, to help them to build up their entrepreneurial projects, which is anyway not very easy if you are doing that in your hometown or your home country, and it can be, of course, much more complicated and challenging if it's being done somewhere in another place. On the other hand, for many people, building your own company and becoming an entrepreneur means many things, not just the financial benefits, but it also, I would say, means for many, I know it meant for me, that you're somehow establishing your own, let's say, authority or your own ability to build something by yourself. So it can be in many ways very, very rewarding. And before I jump into the presentation itself, I just want to quote one book that's one of my favorite books. It's called Small Giants. This book was written by a guy called Bo Burlingham, and the topic of the whole book is about companies that chose to remain small. These are companies that were in industries that they were able to grow, but they said we would rather be small companies, but very, very, very good. Many of them the best in the world or the best in the market, but we choose to remain independent and remain small, but again, very good. And in the preface to that book, this guy, Bo Burlingham, wrote that being an entrepreneur is in some ways like being an artist, because you start from nothing. So the artist, if he's a painter, starts from an empty canvas. If he's a writer, like myself, you start from an empty, it used to be the empty page in the typewriter. Today, it's the empty screen on the Microsoft Word on your laptop. And I don't know how many of you have the privilege of writing from time to time, but you know, when the empty screen comes up and you look at it, and the first thing you think is, I'm sure there's something more important I can do in my house. Maybe I can wash dishes, or I can, I don't know, clean the floors, anything, not just to create something new and some new content. And so for many entrepreneurs, it's like that. We start from zero and we have a great idea and we know that the world is waiting for us to come on. And then sometimes it works better, sometimes not so well, but this parallel with the artistic process to me was kind of really interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. So let's continue. And Marusha, I'm relying on you to keep me in time, so to stop whenever we need to stop.
Will do, don't worry.
Yeah. You know, as all my friends know, I have this temperament that likes to talk a lot. My family is from the Mediterranean, so in the Mediterranean you talk all the time. But no, that's what we have to do today.
But your beard reminds to Castro, but also length of your presentation. So try to keep it on the schedule.
Thank you, Sasha. I know that Castro is your favorite idol that you keep on the wall every day to look at that. Okay, so let's host disabled participant screen sharing. I need to ask the host, I guess that's Marusha, to enable me to share the screen.
We'll do that. Just you can tell us the story meanwhile.
Yeah, but come. Okay, so I will maybe start talking about that, and then we will soon share the whole screen. So the topic today is crowdfunding, and essentially, I'm pretty sure that many of you have already been in touch with something like that. Crowdfunding is the idea where you have an idea or a project and you want to mobilize many of your friends to support you financially in your project. So your friends, and if there are many friends, that's a crowd. And when the crowd funds your project, that's called crowdfunding. And it can have different aspects, different combinations, different structures. But basically the idea is very simple. You announce to the world or to your group of friends or to your network that you have a goal. Your goal is to build something, and you invite them to share with you, to support you, usually by paying different amounts of money. Typically, this money can be from a very small amount, like $1, $2, €1, €2, to a much bigger amount if there is a fan in your network that really wants to help you a lot. So that kind of basic idea about inviting many people to pitch in to achieve a common goal is something that is common for all forms of crowdfunding. And Marusha, how are you coming along with that permission? No, still not. Okay.
I think that you have permission now. I think you have it. Check it, please.
Ah, there you go. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Great. Okay, so I'm assuming you can all see this slide with just 3 words, the word title of the presentation and the 2 words that are my first and last name. So we'll just dive right into that. So if you're having an entrepreneurial project and you want to build a business, if you can have some customers at the very start of the project, always keep in mind those are your best investors. So if you can sell something early on, if you can get your customers to pay in advance, if you promise them to produce anything, t-shirts or some wonderful meals or whatever else, and if you can motivate your customers to pay in advance, that is great because they are really the best investors. So as I mentioned before, crowdfunding is a model of funding where you get small amounts of revenue from a lot of people. The reason it's expressed this way is that usually when you talk about investing, we talk about either getting a loan from a bank or we talk about getting investment from a private like fund or angel investor or VC fund. That usually means you're getting one or maybe a few investors and they give you a relatively large amount of money. Crowdfunding is the other way around. So you get many, many people to support you with different, but usually small amounts of money. And initially, crowdfunding started with, I would say, not business-related stuff. It started with arts, movies, books. Somebody wanted to, they wanted to film a documentary, and it was about a very, very, let's say, engaging topic. And if they could get, I don't know, let's say it's about lost animals and you wanted to make a documentary about how lost animals are not being treated well, then usually you will find lots of people who are really emotionally attached to that topic. And then you generate support. It can also be for things like either video games or maybe even board games, for gadgets and many, many other different types of projects. So generally, crowdfunding can be applied to both business-oriented projects, but also artistic or some other kinds of projects. So I have a few examples of some companies that I managed to work with some time ago, and Sasha was a piece of this, just to give you a kind of a sampling of what types of projects can be suited to crowdfunding. So Fabula was an organic pencil. The idea of the lady who was building it is to have a pencil that would use throwaway parts of coffee and tea. So when you drink your tea or coffee in a bar, they would give you that remainder. And from that, instead of throwing it away, you'd create these pencils. So you save the environment. You have some very interesting pencils. The next one was Brlog in Zadar. It was a craft brewery. The idea was for 2 young ladies who wanted to make beer. And it was actually quite successful. Today they have a company, they're producing beer. You can find it in many, many supermarkets. So starting from a crowdfunding beginning, they actually really managed to build a great business. And then Taste of Home was immigrants cooking and catering in Zagreb. STEMI was an educational robot, which is still going very, very strong as a company. Croatian makers, I would say, maker-oriented project doing different kinds of things. Their latest one was a Batmobile. I just want to put this one out to say that you can take very different projects and you can fund them through crowdfunding. Now, to go out and invite people to fund your project, usually you will need what is called a platform. A platform is an online company or online service which is kind of integrating everything that people want to do around that. On the one hand, you as the founder say, hey guys, I want to start this fantastic arts and crafts shop in the middle of, let's say, Paris. I need 100,000 euro. Will you please help me? So you are then the founder. And you invite whoever wants to support you to be on the platform, but it always goes through the platform. Can be Indiegogo, can be Kickstarter. But the key about the platform is that it takes care of all of that logistics, the money, the communication, the trust, etc., etc. So it's not just myself, Ivo, or Sasha, inviting people to send money to our personal bank accounts. And then once the money is there, we say, oh, this is very nice. Thank you for your support. And now we're going for beer. Of course, it's not like that. You send the money if you want to participate to the platform like Kickstarter. And then that platform takes care that the money is properly directed to those people who started the project. And if the whole thing does not work, then you should usually get your money back. So those online platforms are really very, very important part of the whole crowdfunding environment. Kickstarter, Indiegogo are probably the ones best known. In the early days, Kickstarter was kind of known as the premium platform. Indiegogo more kind of broad oriented, and they had differences between them. Today there are very, very numerous crowdfunding platforms. Some of them are for very specific reasons. I would maybe ask Stefanos to cut the microphone, to mute. Thanks. But today, aside from those that are best known, there are many other crowdfunding platforms. Often they are verticals, like some of them are for NGO-oriented purposes. Some are for some other vertical-oriented purposes. We just recently had the example, if you have following in the media, that in the United States, the workers at Amazon were able to form the first union, and they funded that initiative through a online platform, crowdfunding platform called GoFundMe. So it can go from entrepreneurial projects, high tech, to union issues, and let's say labor relations between workers and the companies they work for. But in any case, whichever the cause is, whichever the structure is, there is always, I would say, a kind of a process that I would recommend to follow. This is just kind of my recommendation, but I'm sure there are many other different ones. But basically, first, the idea is you want to define the project. So you want to say very clearly, what is the goal? What is the goal of this crowdfunding project? What do I want to achieve? And if my target is met, let's say I want to raise $10,000 or 10,000 euros. We are in Europe. So I want to raise 10,000 euros. You need to communicate clearly to the people that you want to support you, what exactly is going to happen if you raise 10,000 euros. So the project has to be clearly defined, the financial target, so the amount, and also the timing. In crowdfunding, it's usually a limited time. So you say 1 month, 2 months at the most is the amount of time we're going to try and raise this money. The third very important piece is the awards, or what is called usually perks. So if I give 100 euros to this guy, Sasha Zatojevic, he wants to build some new project, artistic something, what do I get for it? And usually, I mean, always people who create the campaigns say, okay, if you give €1, you get a thank you in my mind. If you get 10 euro, you get a thank you on my website. If you give 100 euro, you get a more tangible thank you note or something. So we will come later to the specific projects. So once you have set everything up, you know you know what you want to do. You have decided on the amount. You have decided on the timing. You have created the perks. Then it's time to launch the campaign. And when you say campaign in crowdfunding, it's almost always a really, really strong campaign. So you have to push it and be very, some would say assertive, and some would say very aggressive, because people do not typically like to say goodbye to their money. As my friend Sasha says, it's a nice memory for him. He doesn't want to part from it very easily. And then if everything goes well, the campaign is successful, then whoever supported the project will get their prizes after a certain time. And I'll go to two examples. One example from, both of these are fairly old, but I know them reasonably well. So quite a few years ago, back in 2015, I was publishing a book about European startups. It's called European Startup Revolution. And I wanted to raise money to fund all the costs of the book, the translation, the publishing, etc., etc., etc. So I set for myself a goal of about $8,000 something dollars with different perks. Let me see if we have any of them here now. Okay, so in my example, some of the perks were like this. If you paid 16 euros, you would get, or $16, you would get an online copy, a digital copy of the book. If you paid $32, you would get a physical copy of the book plus a online copy, digital copy. If you paid $32, I think I threw in a t-shirt. $64, something more. So for this project, I created the perks according to the binary system. So 16, 32, 64, 128, etc., because it's a book about technology, it's a book about startups. So I thought it was appropriate to structure the perks along with the binary system. Interestingly enough, the biggest perk in my campaign was $1,024. I thought that was kind of a, not really a joke, but kind of a challenge. Was not really honestly expecting anybody to pitch in at that level. And the prize for the $1,000 was that the guy would get 32 books. They would all be personally signed. They would all be numbered. So book number 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. And I would be willing to give a presentation or a talk at some conference or some event where that person would like to organize. And of course, the person would need to cover the costs of that traveling. So I was just willing to show up and chit chat. And to my great shock and surprise, one evening I was at a friend's house. We were having a party, and around midnight, my phone said bling, and I looked at the email, and it said, "Congratulations, your biggest perk was just now funded, and somebody paid $1,024 for this book that had not come out." We can talk about more details later, but I was really very, very excited about that. Once I reached that initial goal, I defined what is called a stretch goal. And that was the message to my backers saying, guys, this is fantastic. We made it. Let's now make another push. And if we get to this next level, then I will donate a number of books to schools, universities, they'll, help me do that. And in fact, that was also successful. So after all was said and done, I ended up raising what you see here, $12,409 in that campaign, which to me was like, I was very happily surprised that it worked out that way, but there was a lot of preparation going into that. And similarly, at the same time, my friend and editor Oleg Mashtuko was traveling. He had a completely different project. He was traveling to one of the most remote places in the world. It's in the middle of Central Asia called Pamir. And he was raising money to make kind of a traveling expedition with lots of photographs, making a book about the people over there, etc., etc. And he had perks like, you will get a t-shirt from the expedition. So his biggest perk was that if you pay the biggest amount, your company would be like named in the project. So he had a company called Marco Polo Tourist Agency, and they signed up for the largest perk, and that's why the whole project was called Marco Polo Croatia to Pamir. And I can say that I was an early advisor and consultant to Oleg when he was planning this project, but it turned out all very well, and he was a very, very interesting writer and commenter about that long travel. So the perks that we talked about can be all kinds of different things. It can be just like, on the website, thank you, John, or thank you, Marusha, for supporting us. It can be, in my case, could be an ebook, could be a printed book, and then, it depends very much on the project. For instance, in music, there are many more musicians who build their new projects, new albums on crowdfunding, and sometimes they will invite the big supporters who pay a few $1,000s that they can come to their house and they can discuss the musical composition that's being now made, perhaps maybe even make a contribution. So it always relates to having a relationship with the organization or the person who is basically creating that campaign. So as you can see, a lot of it depends on your friends and your network, on people who support you, who trust you, that they will also support you through the campaign itself. So like I mentioned, in Oleg's case, he got $599 to name the trip after the company. In my case, got books, speaking, etc. When you prepare for crowdfunding, regardless of whether it is let's say artistic project or you want to build a business, you have really, I cannot stress this enough, planning is absolutely crucial. So selecting the ideal crowdfunding platform which you want to use, and then thinking about the timing for your launch. I will comment on my case. I was preparing the campaign in that year, 2015, I think, maybe in 2014. We were planning the whole thing late in autumn before the winter, let's say October, November was the planning, but we already knew that we could not come out with a campaign in December, because December is everybody's crazy, Christmas time, Christmas presents, then the holidays. So if we try to go in that time, that would be a disaster. So we prepared everything ahead of time, and then we launched the campaign in February, when most of the people were not anymore drunk from the New Year and the Christmas, and they're more or less getting back to business, and still the spring and summer business activities were not picking up that strongly. So timing for the campaign can be really, really important. You have to think about the target audience. Who are these people that you want to ping for the money? It has to be usually some kind of community that's receptive to what you want to do. Think about your promotion on social media. If you can get any mainstream media to talk about you, newspapers. Ideally, if the project is very niche, so if you are building something that's only interesting to a very specific group of people, then if you get an international global publication that's covering exactly that topic, then very likely they will be much more useful than if, let's say, the New York Times has an article about you. And then a very, very important part is that you want to make sure before you start that you have in advance agreed with your friends and your network and your supporters to support you with about 20 or 25% of these funds before you start. And then once you do start, you expect them to start, let's say, committing or buying those perks over the first few days, because the first few days are very critical. And once people who are not part of your circle hear about the campaign, they go to the campaign and they see nothing is happening, €0 over the past 5 days, and they give up, they don't care. If they see something actually is happening with the campaign, okay, somebody's buying, there's some traction, yeah, I can participate because this is going to be successful. So arranging with some of your best buyers ahead of time is also extremely important. And then, once the campaign is underway, it's like you have to be completely focused, because it's a very short time. You need to keep getting out, reaching out to people, pinging, emailing, all kinds of stuff. And you always have to keep in mind, in crowdfunding, you're asking for some money ahead of time. So you're saying to these people, I will produce this. It can be a book, it can be a travel adventure, it could be a new product. You just thought about this super smart smartwatch that's smarter than any other smartwatch, but you need the money to build it. So people are investing in your project because they're really convinced that they can trust you. And that's that's a big ask. So you're going to have to reach out to a huge number of people, and a small minority will support you, which means that within your network, the people that you have to be ready to really be a pain in the ass and say, hey friend, have you seen my campaign? And he says, yeah, I saw it twice. Please contribute. It's not very necessarily not very pleasant, but you either do it or you don't do it. That's kind of message. Of course, it's very useful if you have a relatively nice, or even better, huge number of connections in the various social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, I don't know, Instagram, TikTok, whatever is your favorite. But the more energy you can create around the campaign without only being dependent on the media and blogs and papers, that's the better. And like it says here in the last point, ideally what you want is that you want the people to support you because they see that you're really passionate about it. It's not something like, I want to get a new car, so please help me get a new car, send me 10,000 euros. No, it's something, I want to create something new. Like I mentioned about the girls before, Brlog Brewery, they were like absolutely passionate about that. There were two young ladies, they wanted to build a brewery in the town of Zadar here in Croatia. And Zadar is typically a very, let's say, male-oriented town. And beer, obviously, is kind of male thing. So we felt as mentors in the program that they really had a huge challenge. But you could see that they also understood that. But they were super passionate about that. Finally succeeded. Today, it's a very successful company. And it's up and running. But, whoever was part of that campaign initially at the time, you could just see those two girls saying, we have to do this. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. And that's the kind of feeling that you want to communicate through your campaign to your backers. So I mentioned a stretch goal earlier. A stretch goal, it's a very simple idea. So your initial target is $10,000. That's great. And suppose you're doing this over a month time, and at the end of week 3, you reach $10,000. So what do you do now? Do you say, okay, thanks everybody, that's really great, we've done the goal and we're going home? No. Before you start the campaign, you say, okay, guys, if we manage to reach this first goal, then we're having the extra goal, the so-called stretch goal, and we're going to have some reason for people to donate even more, because we want to make this even more of a success. And very often the stretch goal is very often linked to something that is, let's say, socially important. So in my case, I committed to sending a number of my books to public schools and middle schools and elementary schools. So no specific, let's say, profit for me, but my funders, the people who backed me, were able to participate in, sending these books to kids, and somehow, someday, some kid might read the book and say, I want to be an entrepreneur. And you can devise stretch goals in different kinds of ways, but definitely you have to think about that before even you start the campaign. And that's it. It's one of my favorite, let's say, posters saying time to be awesome. I don't want to go into details about why this is a robotic dinosaur, but just kind of a motivation to the participants of today's workshop to really kind of go out and pursue their goals.
Great, thank you, Ivo.
Thanks, guys.
Any questions for Ivo?
Maybe I can add just a few points because you mentioned me a few times.
Of course. Go on, Sasha.
Okay, thanks a lot. So just briefly, I'm an entrepreneur for more than 30 years. I started many companies, and I also did a lot as an angel investor. I invested in dozens of companies. Some of them are pretty successful. Of course, some of them broke during the period, and at the end of the day, I'm in profit. So more or less, I was successful even in this part of my business career as a business angel and startup investor. So regarding the crowdfunding, of course, I would say, first of all, always people would ask me about if I publish it into the crowdfunding campaign, like a site. It is going to be either maybe Indiegogo, Kickstarter, or something else. Everybody would see it and somebody would steal my idea, somebody would steal my concept. This is a question that most of the people in the beginning ask. But basically, if people are trying to copy you, that's the good thing. So usually copying means that there is a market. This is excellent example of existing of a market. If nobody is trying to copy you anyway, usually you should think about what you are doing wrong. So you need to get rid of this fear of stealing, that somebody will steal your idea. You need to be fast and execute, and crowdfunding is one of the ways how you can execute faster than in maybe some regular ways. The second thing is also people are always asking, what are you going to get with it if I'm not going to get the goal? So usually some of the business people, maybe this is more for the business, less for some art or some good cause, which also can be financed to the crowdfunding. But usually people are using it also to get not a free PR, but a cheaper PR, cheaper according to the reach and impact of the PR you may get through the crowdfunding campaign. So good crowdfunding campaign is also excellent marketing tool. It would help to get some traction in the medias. Media could see that something is interesting, and you can get you can be featured in a lot of media that usually you're going to pay a lot to be featured in, and a lot of people would know about your campaign, your product, and everything you are doing. So one more thing, Ivo mentioned that in the beginning a few times that crowdfunding is mostly directed to your friends. I would say yes, in the beginning, they are friends. They are very important. Your close friends, personal friends, your acquaintance from the real life, you may say. They are very important in the beginning, but generally crowdfunding is, let's say, aimed towards much bigger group. Most of the people who are going to back up your campaign are the people you have never seen, probably would never heard, and you will probably never meet them in real life. So in the beginning, friends, but you're targeting much broader audience at the end. That's the aim. Why are friends important? As Ivo mentioned, but I will stress it once more because this is the most important thing in my opinion. When you kickstart, when you start crowdfunding campaign, the first few days, or let's say first week or two, they are most important. Why? Because you need to get traction. Usually traction you would get from your friends and from your acquaintance and from group of the people you know in your real life. So you really need to prepare before launching of the campaign. You need to prepare at least dozen or at least 10 people that would back you, meaning backing you by sharing, backing you by putting some money. $5. Sometimes you can even fake it. Take your $100, spread it among your 10 friends, and ask them to buy perk in the beginning to advertise, because usually people would do what they see that other people are doing. So if I see that Ivo invested $10 or let's say $20 or $1,000 in something, I would look more closely into it to try to see why does he's backing it up. Is it the business reason? Is it some support? Is it maybe because those guys are promoting something which is, I don't know, according to his beliefs or something that is worth to support? So once again, in the beginning, prepare it with your friends, prepare it with your group, prepare it with your friends from the high school, prepare it with your parents, prepare it with your cousins, but you need to have at least dozen of the people who are going to really support you, share and put some money into it, and then it would probably start some traction and it will gain some traction. One more thing is that crowdfunding, there is this example of the two girls starting the brewery. I mean, everybody can have an idea. Okay, why? Well, I know how to make a beer. I would like to have my own brewery, and I would make money. But why would somebody give you money for starting of the brewery? Not to go into the details, but they have a nice idea, a nice explanation why somebody would give them money. They were really enthusiastic, and they made it in the beginning. And of course, later they did it as a proper business. But it is important to have something interesting, something catchy. It is, first of all, need that you have something in the project like this, and then you need to explain it through the very good video, through very good posts on the social media and stuff like this. Also, to end with perks. I mean, perks, it can really be everything. We can talk about it. As Ivo said, sometimes it can be simple thanks, it can be t-shirt, but most of the hardware stuff, people who are doing the hardware stuff, they are going to do different kind of special pre-ordering, special, like say, we have the friend who is doing the Circuit Mass is the name of the company. They did Batmobile. They had the license from, who it was, Warner Brother, I don't know who is the owner of the Batman license. But when they started the crowdfunding process to sell this do-it-yourself vehicle like toy, they of course had very interesting perks for the people, because they were able to give them some special editions and stuff like this. At the end, Ivo will probably know better. I think they reached more than 400K in euros in the Kickstarter campaign, and that's not the first campaign they did. So if you have the good product, you can maybe crowdfund it while having the perks of some special items or early delivery, stuff like this. And don't think that crowdfunding should be only done through the crowdfunding platform. Let me give you a few interesting ideas. For example, I'm a great fan of electric cars. So for example, there is a car called Aptera, E-P-T-E-R-I, Aptera. So they are, for example, co-financing the project. So you can prepay $100. You can, let's say, like combine the elements of your car, and you hope and you trust that they are going to once deliver your car and going to pay for it. But by putting €100, you are standing in the line to get it in the beginning. For example, Tesla did it many times. They were taking prepayments from all over the world for the cars they are promising that are going to deliver. Some of them they deliver, some of them like Cybertrucks, they are still promising to be delivered. But for example, for some of the cars like Tesla Roadster, if you want to have the founder series, you need to pay complete amount. I think it's $250K US or euro for the car. And I know the guy who paid the car like 2 years ago, and he is still waiting for it, and he is okay with it. So if you have a good proposal, people are going to be willing to pay, and they're going to trust you that you are going to deliver it. You don't need, I mean, for the smaller company, of course, it's good to have a platform, but sometimes you can do it even without a platform. And to end the story, one of the interesting example, Ivo mentioned Oleg. So me and Oleg, we went to Sahara over one of the most famous amateur rally in the world called Budapest Bamako. It is like, they call it like Paris-Dakar for the poor people. So we were using the Tesla car to go from Budapest. We ended up in Gambia because 2019, the aim was to reach Gambia. And this was the first time that electric car crossed Sahara. And we financed part of this trip through the crowdfunding campaign. And it was a very interesting topic. It was getting a lot of traction in the PR. So we have been featured from, I don't know, media in South America to Netherlands to Sweden. Even we have been featured on the Senegal TV station and stuff like this. So this also meant a nice value for the company supporting us, but for the physical and personal people supporting, they had also the feel that they are supporting something important, something interesting. But also for most of the crowdfunding campaign, what we have did also for this trip, you need to have I would say that definitely you need to have the groups on social media, for example, like a group or page on the Facebook where you are going to communicate daily, hourly, sometimes with your supporters, giving them what is going on with the project. For example, if you are financing some kind of trip or a book, you can give them the updates, how it is going, what is the progress, post some pictures. And this is going to keep them involved, and this is going to give them also some value. Even if they don't going to get something tangible, they're going to feel that they are participating in something which is for them important or at least interesting. So just a few brief ideas about this. That's more or less from my side. Thanks.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? I'm now looking at the brewery website of those two ladies, and the slogan they have on the website is they're organized as a cooperative, so Zadruga in Croatian, cooperative, and their slogan is the cooperative of stubborn optimists. And I think it's a good slogan for any entrepreneur that you have to be stubborn and you have to be an optimist. So so just one small comment there. Sorry.
Thank you, Ivo. Thank you, Sasha. Please, any questions for Ivo and Sasha? It's a rare opportunity to ask them anything. Yes, please.
Hey, hello. I would like to ask if I have a project that is partially funding. I'm talking with VCs and also funding from the state. At what point will be the good moment to launch a crowdfunding campaign? Because I think it's most in my case to make awareness than to raise money. But I would like to hear your opinion.
What kind of project it is?
Video game. It's educational video game.
Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, it's really depending up to you, because as you said, there is a value in the PR and marketing you can get from the crowdfunding campaign, but also if you don't do it properly, this value would not be probably significant. On the other hand, the video game, in my opinion, is interesting because really you can give them a lot of perks. Because if you are developing your video games for the early adopters, for the guys in the campaign, you can give them later some special objects in the game that nobody else can buy. Like, for example, I'm playing like from the wargaming series, like World of Tanks or World of Warships and stuff like this. So basically what you can do, you can give them some kind of badges and stuff that they were being supporting for the beginning. So for the keen player, it can be interesting. The second thing is, of course, you can always give them some early access into some beta or even earlier that they can be. So for the good guys, if you present it very good, it can be like really, really something worth for them. And also this way you can even gain some traction with early adopters, which are very strong supporters. They can be basically evangelists for your game through their, let's say, communities. And sometimes one or two guys who are eager, who are going to, I don't know, vote for you in some kind of groups on the internet. They're going to basically advertise you. It's much stronger than you are coming to the group, and said, this is a great game. But if there are some people who are eager, so if I were you, I would not wait for this. It is anytime is good for this. I mean, your investors will probably be happy to see that you are doing it. And I don't think that government with the grants would have anything against it, because everything goes in the same direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, my comment would be that I think you should really differentiate between crowdfunding and just a normal publicity campaign. So crowdfunding has a very specific aim. You want to raise XYZ amount of money by raising blah, 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 perks, etc., and it's a very specific project. So if you really need to raise funding, crowdfunding is one avenue that you can take. Of course, it can be combined with VCs, with angel investors, depending on the platform. We didn't even have time to go into the question of equity crowdfunding, which is a very, very let's say, serious business and a great opportunity. But back to your question, if you are looking primarily for visibility, for publicity, for gaining new gamers, and for reaching out to the gaming community, I would probably separate that out and say, okay, guys, we need a campaign. It can be a visibility campaign. It can be a PR campaign. It could be and what Sasha mentioned, you can also give out perks in that context. it doesn't mean that you have, so you can have a kind of a prize game or whatever, and people can get, I don't know what we get in these gaming. Sasha is more in that than myself. I have a passionate gamer in-house, but I'm not one myself. So I think you give out shields or coins or some curses or some, I don't know, thunderbolts or whatever. But I would suggest really differentiating communication campaign, visibility campaign, and crowdfunding, because crowdfunding is for raising money. And if you want, and of course, it can be very, very useful, very valuable for raising the visibility in the profile. But again, I think, you know, if you decide within your whole fundraising thinking that crowdfunding makes sense, absolutely go for it. Can be super useful for gaining visibility. On the other hand, if visibility is the primary thing that you need, and you will solve your funding issues with your VCs or whoever, then maybe it's wiser not to pursue crowdfunding just for the sake of visibility.
Mhm. Okay, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Or maybe you want to share with us your idea, and maybe Ivo and Sasha can advise you.
Well, if I can, it's
Go on.
what we are trying to do. It's a blockchain video game for financial education, to actually know how to use Web3 to make money. So we are still
You certainly hit all the buzzwords. Blockchain, Web3.
Yeah. So this the problem for or the situation on one side, it's that it's like you said, it's the buzzword is very interesting now, but on the other hand, most of the people doesn't know what this is. So we have people that it's very excited about this, and people that doesn't know about what we are talking, and it's becoming difficult to match this to these two sides of the problem.
Mm-hmm. But there is maybe a solution for this also. I would always use the ones who understand, if they are eager and if they are into it. I would use them for promoting it to others, because sometimes we are very good in something, like maybe we are good developers, maybe we are good salesperson, but sometimes we are not good in really like explaining everybody what we are doing, because when we are doing it, we know everything about it, and sometimes we don't put ourselves into the shoes of the general user, which don't know anything about blockchain or whatever buzzword you are using. So for example, sorry, greatest advocates, or let's say even some people you really use, like evangelists, the people who are really hooked to your product, they are your ambassadors. They can really better explain this to some general Joe, that you're going to be able to do it, because they also have been looking at your product from outside. So if they understood, they would probably better be the ones who are going to explain it. So find some of them, engage with them, communicate with them, ask them, because some of the people would do it just because they like your product. They would like to be, you know, the zero gamer, zero rider, the first 10 club member or whatever, and they are going to do amazing stuff for you for free, because they would like to be appreciated in some of the companies, in some of the groups, when they are like, they would be like some kind of, you know, the important person, or some kind of, I don't know, the guys who are standing behind, who backed up the project from the early days. So think about the way how to use use them, and they can be a great help to connect these two groups.
Thank you very much.
I totally agree with Sasha. I think one really super important thing to keep in mind here is, who are your typical consumers, customers, players? You know, because in the world of gaming today, you know, gamers can be like my son, people who will spend, you know, 6 hours during the night hooked to the computer playing, you know, EVE Online, super complex game with they focus on for months. Or it can be a little old lady coming from the supermarket in London. She gets on the tube and she plays Candy Crush or whatever that. So today games are ranging from extremely high-end, engaged with all the special purpose equipment, blah blah blah, to very 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 casual. Now, depending on who your players are, and who the customers are that you want to attract, you have to think about them, because if you have blockchain, Web3, blah, 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 and you want to attract the little old lady from the supermarket, that's okay, but she doesn't care about blockchain. She just wants to have a nice game, and that's fine. And if your game has sophisticated technology behind it, and the old lady doesn't care, that's cool. On the other hand, if your players are, you know, tech-savvy guys who talk about Web3 all day, then you talk to those guys in a different way. So the communication level and the strategy you want to use has to be aligned with your users, and you have to figure out who those guys are, and then you have to talk to them in their language. Because if you talk to me about blockchain and Web3 and NFTs, yeah, you know, I get it a little bit because some of my friends are doing something about that, but I'm not totally like, okay. And I don't know, if you talk to Sasha about electric vehicles, and, you know, he will come on board immediately, but you have to, you know, hit him with those very specific buzzwords that he really is passionate about, and I don't care so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, maybe? Or someone wants to share something with us?
Ivo, maybe we can speak, if there are no questions, a bit about crowdfunding, as you mentioned, in the form of crowd investment. So this is also
absolutely, absolutely. Thanks.
Just a few words about it.
Yeah. So just to kind of fill in the information for the participants, today there are multiple platforms online where you can actually raise investment by giving perks, not so much t-shirts or books, but instead of you give them a piece of the company. So there are a few platforms like that. One of the best known in the UK is called Seeders. And another very popular, which is from Estonia, also has a representative here in Croatia, is called Funderbeam. And I'll put it in the comments so everybody can see. But basically, the idea is that very similar to what we talked about, the strategy is the same. You want to create interest, you want to create buzz, etc., etc. But the people that come online buy shares in your company. And then depending on the specific platform, they can later sell them or not sell them, etc., etc. Sometimes they also get a nice perk, like, I don't know, I know there was a French winery calling on Cedars, and apart from buying 5% of the company, you also get a nice carton of beautiful French wine. But in that case, it's more like a nice add-on. But the key is that you get a piece of the company, and then you basically are a shareholder. The platforms are organized in such a way that they can accept small amounts of money, like, I don't know, 100 euro, 200. And you don't have to be a certified investor, blah, 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 blah. And this equity crowdfunding concept has really evolved very strongly past couple of years. First, I think in Europe, and then went on to the US. But if any of you are considering to really building up a company and looking for investors in that sense, then that's definitely one option you can use. And like I said, I'll put in the comments some keywords and some brands, and you can explore from there. And Sasha, thanks a lot for bringing that up.
So thank you. Oh, my last question for you. Is there maybe any more questions for Ivo and Sasha? This is last time that I'm asking. If not, okay, I think not. Okay, so then thank you for joining us today. Hopefully this was very interesting and helpful. We will share a presentation with you, and if you have any questions afterwards, just you know who to ask. Send us an email. You can reach us easily through our partners in each country. So that's it. Have a nice day. Sasha and Ivo, thank you one more time, and see you, hopefully.
And go build your companies.
Thank you, Mariusz. Thanks everybody for your time.
Thanks, guys. Take care.